is something happening inside you right now that you cannot name. It is not sadness. Sadness you have felt before, and you know its shape. This is something deeper, something that sits behind your ribs, like a stone that grew there while you were sleeping. You have been carrying it for months, maybe longer. Maybe since the moment someone you trusted looked you in the eye and decided you are no longer worth protecting. That moment, if you are honest, did not break you. It changed the architecture of your mind. It rearranged every room inside you and locked some of the doors that used to be open. And now you walk through your days with a quiet authority that people sense but cannot explain. You are different, not because you became harder, because you became deeper. And the enemy noticed. The enemy has been watching you from a distance, studying the way you hold your ground when the room goes cold, studying the way you keep your mouth shut when the lie is obvious, studying the way you sit in silence while everyone around you panics. He is taking notes. He is genuinely curious, not angry. Curious. And that should terrify you, because when the devil is curious about you, it means you have developed something he cannot manufacture. You have mastered a new power, not the power of revenge, not the power of performance, not the power of pretending you are fine while your chest collapses in the dark. No, this is something older, something that existed before your enemies, before your family, before the betrayal that carved its name into the inside of your skull. This is the power of the chosen one who was broken open and found gold where the fracture was. Let me describe what you have been feeling, and I need you to stay with me because this is important. Your body is tired, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. A bone-deep weariness that lives in your shoulders, in the base of your spine, in the hollow behind your eyes. You wake up already heavy. You go through your morning routine with the mechanical precision of someone running on fumes, and by noon you are wondering how you will survive the afternoon. Your mind is exhausted too. It does not stop. It replays conversations you had 6 months ago, examining every word, every pause, every facial expression for evidence that you deserved what happened to you. You isolate, you cancel plans, you stop answering messages because the energy it would take to explain your life to someone who does not understand is more than you have left. The injustice is maddening. You can see it so clearly. You can see the manipulation, the projection, the way your name was dragged through the mud by people who smiled in your face, and yet nobody intervened. Nobody stood up. You watched it happen, and you swallowed every word because keeping the peace felt safer than telling the truth. And those tears, the ones you cry in the shower where no one can hear, the ones you wipe away before your child walks in, before your coworker sees, before the world gets another piece of evidence that you are not holding it together. That is the pain. That is the wound. And you have been living inside it for months, quiet, composed on the outside, bleeding on the inside. I need you to agree with something right now. If you know this ache, if you have been carrying it without telling anyone, then say it in your heart. You are not weak for feeling this. You are not broken for struggling. You are not foolish for trusting the wrong people. This is the weight of the chosen one before the victory. Every biblical figure who ever changed history went through a season where the silence was so loud it became its own kind of torture. right now, in this moment, you are standing in that same silence. But something is different this time. You are not in it passively. You are changing from the inside out. And the enemy feels it. There is a path that has been waiting for you. It is called the Solomon Code. It is a practical guide built in 3 movements. A diagnosis that names what has actually been happening. A way to quiet the soul that has been screaming for months. And a daily protocol that gives you discernment instead of anxiety. I want you to go to the pinned comment right now. Read about it. Let it sit with you. But before you click, stay with me for a moment, because there is something I need to say to you about the burden of being the strong one. You are the one everyone calls when things fall apart. You are the one who holds the family together, who manages the conflict, who absorbs the emotional chaos so that other people can breathe. You have become so skilled at carrying weight that you have forgotten what it feels like to set it down. And there is a specific kind of loneliness that comes from being the strong one. It is not the loneliness of being alone. It is the loneliness of being alone even when you are surrounded by people. Because no one sees the exhaustion. No one sees the fractures. They see the composed face, the steady voice, the reliable presence, and they assume you are fine. And so you keep performing. You keep holding. You keep smiling while something inside you is quietly begging to be seen. Self-forgiveness for the chosen one is not about letting go of what happened. It is about finally allowing yourself to admit that it hurt, that it still hurts, that you are allowed to hurt and still be worthy of the power that is coming. The strong person in the family was never meant to carry everything alone. That was never the assignment. That was a wound pretending to be the role. Now let me take you somewhere. Let me take you into the story of a man who understood silence the way you are beginning to understand it now. Let me take you into the life of Joseph. Imagine the pit, not the nice prison cell you see in movies. A pit, a hole in the ground, dark, dusty, the smell of earth and sweat and animal waste. Joseph was 17 years old. His own brothers had stripped him, thrown him in, and walked away. They sold him for 20 pieces of silver while he lay below them, covered in dirt, listening to their footsteps fade into the distance. No trial, no explanation, just violence and abandonment, and the sound of the ground swallowing him whole. He did not scream. He did not curse God. He did not beg. He lay there in that pit, and he listened. He listened to the silence. And in that silence, something started to form inside him that no betrayal could destroy. Then came the prison, not because he was guilty, but because he refused to lie about the favor of God on his life. He interpreted dreams for the cupbearer and the baker. He gave accurate words, precise words, words that would come true. And the cupbearer promised to speak on his behalf. 2 full years passed. 2 years in a cell, in a cold stone room, with no guarantee, no timeline, no visible progress. And through it all, Joseph did not stop speaking truth. He did not become bitter. He did not start calculating how to manipulate his way out. He simply kept being who God made him to be, even when the walls were closing in and the timeline made no sense. And then one night, the cupbearer remembered, and Joseph was brought before Pharaoh. And in that moment, everything he had suffered, every silence, every sleepless night, every tear he swallowed in the dark, was rearranged into purpose. The pit became preparation. The prison became prophecy. The betrayal became the very thing that positioned him to save an entire nation from famine. Now I want you to look at your own life over the last 6 months. Look at it clearly. The person who misrepresented you, the conversations that were twisted, the relationships that were quietly poisoned from the inside, the way your reputation was damaged while you stood there with your mouth closed because you believed that silence was strength, the exhaustion that set in when you realized that telling the truth would not change anything because the people who needed to hear it had already decided what they believed. That is your pit. That is your prison. And you are in it right now. But here is what the enemy does not want you to see. The same silence that feels like defeat is actually becoming the foundation of something that will outlast every lie that was told against you. You are not losing. You are being forged, and the new power you have mastered is not the power to fight back. It is the power to endure with your identity intact. So let me give you something real. Let me give you a tool you can use tonight. It is called the 3 silences. The first silence is the silence of the soul. This is not about being quiet in a room. This is about stopping the internal narration that tells you that you are unworthy, that you are too much, that you are not enough. You sit in a place where you will not be interrupted. You close your eyes, and you say out loud or in your heart the names of the last 5 people who hurt you. Not to curse them, to release them. You are giving them back to God. Each name is a door you close, and with each name you feel something shift in your chest. Not anger leaving, weight leaving. The second silence is the silence of declaration. This is where you speak over your own life, what has been spoken over you in darkness. You say, I am the chosen one, not because I earned it, because it was declared before I was born. You say, what was meant to destroy me is being redirected. You say, my season of silence is not my season of absence. It is my season of preparation. And you repeat these words slowly, not as a performance, but as a reorientation of your spirit. The third silence is the silence of decision. This is where you stop waiting for someone to validate your pain. You decide on your own that you will no longer beg for recognition from people who were never equipped to give it. You decide that your worth is not determined by the room you are standing in. You decide that the power you carry is not dependent on approval. Each of these silences has a spiritual function. The first clears the clutter. The second rebuilds the identity. The third activates the authority. And when you practice them consistently, something changes. The noise does not stop, but you stop reacting to it. You become the person in the room who does not flinch. But here is the truth that most people will never tell you. Having a tool is not the same as having a system. Anyone can do a prayer exercise once and feel something. But without a framework, without a structured diagnosis of what is actually happening in your spirit, without a daily protocol that keeps you anchored when the attack comes at 3 in the morning, you will keep falling back into the same patterns. You do not need more advice. You do not need another verse on your wall. You need a system that treats your specific wound with specificity. You need something that knows the difference between spiritual attack and emotional exhaustion. You need something that meets you where you are and walks with you through the diagnosis, through the quieting, through the daily decisions that keep your soul steady. Your war era is over. I am not saying the battles stop. I am saying the era of you fighting without a strategy, of you bleeding without a bandage, of you carrying everything without anyone showing you how to put it down. That era is finished. What is beginning now is the governance era. The era where you lead your own inner life with precision, where you know when something is an attack and when something is a test, where you stop guessing and start discerning. The Solomon Code is built on 3 movements. The first movement is diagnosis. This is where you learn to name what has been happening to you spiritually, not in vague terms, in specific, accurate, almost clinical terms, because the enemy relies on confusion. The moment you can name the tactic, it loses half its power. The second movement is quieting the soul. This is not relaxation. This is active spiritual work. It is a daily practice of returning your inner voice to the frequency of truth, even when the world around you is screaming lies. And the third movement is deciding with discernment. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you stop second-guessing every decision, every confrontation, every moment of silence. You move with clarity because you have done the internal work. That is what the pinned comment holds. That is the path, not a magic formula, a structured, biblical, practical guide that treats your pain like it matters, because it does. Now I want you to do something. Close your eyes if you can, or just listen. I am going to speak 3 things over your life, and I want you to receive them not as words, but as seeds. The first, you are the chosen one, and that identity was not revoked by what happened to you. The second, the power you have been developing in silence is real, and it will be recognized at the right time. The third, your next chapter is not a reaction to your pain. It is a revelation of your purpose. Hold those. Let them land. The decision is yours. The path is there. You do not have to move today. You do not have to click right now. Some of the most important decisions in the life of the chosen one were made not in urgency, but in the quiet moment when they finally stopped running and sat down and said, I am ready. I am ready to receive what has been waiting for me. And when you are ready, the pinned comment will be exactly where it is. The guide will be there. The 3 movements will be there. And your life, the real one, the one beneath the performance, will begin to shift in ways you did not expect. Go in peace. You have always been the chosen one. You are just waiting for yourself to remember.